Sweet friends, how do you do today? And how do you woo today? And how do you woo you today? Welcome to How to Woo, a podcast on love and making love so we can make sure we're making lives we love. I am your host, Luna Robbie. I am a multi-artist and creative guide obsessed with learning about life, especially from other humans direct, because we all have our own unique perspective and wisdom. So here we are again for some deep listening and a little necrophilia so we can stay excited about life and co-create a world where taking care of each other is the norm. Let's dive in. Our guest today is a 37-year-old queer, polyamorous, gender nonconforming Latinx human who uses they, them, he pronouns and she when in drag. They've been married for a year to their partner of 13 years and are into feet, spit, and BDSM, and were trained to be a dom by being a good sub, which means they lived in a cage for a year. A former adult intimacy advisor and survival sex worker training to be a submissive transformed him into the best sir and educational sex worker. Their mission is to spread awareness, love, and care, and he tries to not tell lies. An artist, producer, entertainer, performer, go-go dancer, and OnlyFans creator from Southern California, welcome, Spike.
Hello, hello. Nice to see you and hear you and, do all this. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to hear your stories. Can you start off, though? First, we want to get to know you as a person. So, just broadly speaking, tell us, what do you love? What brings you joy? What makes you go woo?
Wow, what brings me joy and makes me feel whoa. I'm learning that I'm not sure I like people, but I love community. I love bringing people together, and I like being together and finding that common ground of artistic expression. I love food. I like movement. Anything with wheels. Art, music. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. What are your favorite ways to love yourself? Like, how do you woo you?
I'm a big bath person. I
Oh, me too.
strongly believe in like ritualistic baths, finding the right ingredients to make you feel how you want to feel or what you need to feel or what you need to change. Um, I haven't been on my bicycle for quite some time because I got in an accident, but I will get back on wheels. I love biking.
Mm,
I think cycling, just like the rush of the air in your face and being mobile that's not in a vehicle or airplane or train,
yeah.
it's powered by yourself. So those are,
Yeah.
I think, two of my self cares a lot. I love plants, so I have a little patio garden that I tend to, and sometimes don't tend to.
Relatable. Relatable. Okay, so I'd love to hear when you feel the most connected to other humans. And in this point in your life, what do you need or want in order to make a connection become physically intimate?
Hmm. I used to think that um, I would get along. I get more along with people that share my interests, but I think I also have a type. Like friends. I share my interests with my friends, and then I think I find the opposites in lovers. So
Mm.
people that teach me things and I teach them things, and you'll learn, and you kind of vicariously live through their brain. Um, yeah, and I'm all about a moment, time, place person. So as far as like when it takes the next step, that could be at any moment, right? Like some like I could see someone and be like, I want to be intimate with that person, right? But then I can have a conversation and it changes,
Yeah.
you know, or vice versa. I'm having a conversation with someone, and then somewhere through that conversation, I decide or I feel like, oh, I would love to get know this person on an intimate level.
Yeah. Is there a specific thing that moves you towards that, or are your tastes sort of like more broad? Like, is there any pattern that you notice in the types of people who you're like, yeah, I want to know more?
I think my taste runs the gamut, but I think I have a soft spot for like nerdy, nerdy kind of, yeah, like tall nerds. I think you know, the more you know, and I just like people that nerd out on their own things, and yeah, if you're clumsy and klutzy and weird, I love you.
Really? Wait, you like clumsy people? Wait, that's so helpful for me to hear because that's probably one of my biggest, like, I don't really understand embarrassment, but that's maybe where it gets me because I look graceful and then I fall over myself, especially during sex. And then I'm like, fuck, but wait, what do you like about clumsy?
It it's so endearing, to see someone. we focus as society, we focus so much on trying to present our best selves.
Yeah.
When people fall or break something, you really get to see them react in a situation. They turn red, they blush, they apologize or they play it cool, so you get to see how someone reacts in a high pressure situation.
Okay. Wow. Whoa. Okay. I usually giggle at myself. What do you do? Are you ever clumsy or are you pretty like smooth?
Oh, I think I knock things over. I
Okay.
used to get really angry, and I feel like
Oh.
through therapy and help, I giggle now. It's kind of fun, it's like, well, this happened.
Yeah.
As long
Yeah.
as it's not an entire gallon of milk, I'm fine.
Ah! Wait, that's a very specific thing. Do you have an experience with a gallon of milk that we need to know about?
Yeah, I was like a child's holding the milk gallon in a grocery store, but I was like kind of like prancing around, very
Mm.
effeminately, and I let go of that gallon and it just went
Oh, geez.
exploded.
Oh, shit.
And I remember the store making me clean it up, which I thought was very strange. So I was like, now it's like seared into my memory of
Yeah. Wow.
spilled milk.
Oh, wow. Wow. Dude, they made you clean it up. That feels like some sort of punishment. I mean, it is a punishment. Wow. Moving into the realm of sexy, what if you had to rate yourself on a sexual shame-o-meter with 10 being the most full of shame and 0 being like, where do you fall today and how, if at all, has your shame coaster squiggled up and down over the years?
Oh, my shame squiggle coaster has been all over the place. I was raised Catholic, so a lot of that was just built in, right? From birth, you're born with a sin already attached to you. So, like from a very early age, I always felt I had to prove myself, improve my value, improve my worth. I was an altar boy. I had a sexual experience in the church. So it also shapes your mind to blur what's right and what's wrong. Our Jesus is on a cross, but he's half naked with a six pack. So
Yeah.
you're also kind of questioning yourself while you're praying, and it becomes um, a whole psychosis in your brain, right? You're like,
Mm.
am I wrong for feeling this way? I have a tattoo on my right leg that says shame, and then it's crossed out. So I would say I'm like about a 8 or 9, or excuse me, a 1 or 2 on the scale. Like I've really worked hard on getting rid of my shame,
Mm.
but it
Wow.
still sneaks in here and there.
Yeah. Yeah. Was there a moment where you're like, this is something I want to work on, or has it been a process and a result of the course of your life?
I think I didn't realize I had sexual hangups until I had so many partners. And then when you're with different people, you get to kind of magnify their needs and your own. And I realized there was things that I would feel more shameful about afterwards.
Mm.
For example, like masturbation and or having sex with male presenting folks really bothered me up until my early 20s, you
Okay.
know. So I would feel very shameful afterwards. Growing up, the first time I masturbated, I was like, I cried, because I thought I did something very, very bad.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Before we move into details, I always want to presence health and safety. What are your health and safety practices as a polyamorous human right now?
Well, I'm huge on consent. I think I work in nightlife, I work in bar culture, and most of the time I'm either in drag or in a jockstrap. And society's taught people to just grab what they want. And to me, that's become, yes, I'm there for your pleasure. Yes, I'm there for to be goggled and looked at, oogle me and love me. But I think we've kind of blurred the lines of where it's right and wrong to touch somebody and or reach down their pants or
Yeah.
penetrate them without permission. Like this happens very often in our culture, in our society, in the bar scene. So consent is huge. I think it's part of my schema. It's part of my conversation. I start every show or everything I host starts with please ask consent. But I will often give consent right off the bat in order, I think, to take control of the situation. Right? I'd rather people touch me, the host, than touch my guests.
Mm.
You know, and
Hmm.
then they can ask if they can touch my guests, but I give them permission so that I feel like they feel comfortable. You give someone permission to touch you during a show, you open that safety realm. So I think conversation and consent is the biggest for me. Um, as far as safety goes. If I ever do sex work that's not in my home, that is, into someone's domicile, I do give my location and preface, I tell someone where I am. That's my safety. And then if I'm doing any kind of BDSM work, I have safety shears at my side at all times within reach. Um, yeah, I'm trained in administering overdose drugs. I'm trained in CPR. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. I love and just want to highlight that inviting people into how they can participate. That's something that has been a big shift for me in the last couple of years. Instead of telling people specifically or only what not to do, I invite them into how they can collaborate with me and or touch me,
Mm.
depending on the scenario. And I notice that's something that has also helped empower anyone who is kind of my lover or someone who, maybe wants to touch and, kind of in my experience personally, it has really made it so that people are my colleagues, my friends, instead of like maybe trying to push past a boundary because I explicitly said, this is off the table, here's what's on the table. So I love that you do that for your guests. When you say guests, do you mean like fellow performers or people in the audience or both?
I mostly gear it towards the audience.
Okay.
I give them permission to touch me. I mean, sure, if a performer wants to grab a cup of feel, I'm not going to be angry.
Okay. 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 But you don't want the audience to touch your other performance, is what I think I'm trying
Right,
to understand.
without
Okay. Okay.
consent,
Without consent.
unless,
Got it.
yeah.
I love that. I love setting up those clear
Because, in the
frameworks.
performance world, it's dancing, it's nudity, it's burlesque, it's drag, and often that involves stripping, and people emote, they associate stripping with grabbing, touching, and putting
Yeah.
money,
Yeah.
and sometimes they
Yeah.
forget the money.
Oh, do they forget? Do they forget? That's very generous of you to frame it that way. Yeah, always give strippers money, people, okay? Any kind of sex work, show them your love by giving them money. I would love to hear about barriers or like are you on prep or anything like that? Like when we're talking, and I don't know if you want to talk about your like in your personal life, what do you need to feel safe? Kind of like it sounds like you have multiple partners. So how do you navigate those kinds of conversations and what do you need to play fun and safe?
Really happy you asked that because that's also part of my speech, my schema at the beginning of any show. I'm actually a community partner with the Los Angeles LGBT Center. This is a program that we've started together under the SHEP program.
Yeah.
And this means I carry with me a suitcase of goodies. That suitcase includes condoms, lube. If condoms and lube aren't your thing, I have little cards that tell you where to go get tested, where to get on PrEP, where to get on Doxy. I also have Narcan and pamphlets on how to become Narcan trained.
Mhm.
I have test strips for drinks. I have test strips for your party favors. Um, and that always travels with me because I think, you know, we shouldn't shame people that use and we shouldn't shame people who are sexually adventurous, but we should do it correctly and we should do it safely. So because that's why I partnered with the center in order to have those supplies at my disposal. And any point in time, they're in my trunk of my car, in my little suitcase. I take the condoms out so they don't overheat, obviously. But yes, I get tested every 3 months. I am on PrEP. I am on Doxy. And then, conversation again comes to the biggest factor when communicating with a lover, especially if you're going to be intimate in a fluid bodily transfer way. Um, I think we need to normalize conversations around our sexual health
Yeah.
and our status, and through that we can do away with the stigma on people that are positive. And that's also something that I discuss very often. The word clean
Yes.
comes out in our community a lot, and that refers to someone being dirty, and we're not dirty, we're nasty. You know what I mean? We're creatures
The
of,
best. Yes.
and we're yeah, so, yeah,
I
um,
love
yeah.
that. Yeah, I always try to if I hear someone say that, I always invite them to use the word clear or just, I received negative tests. Do you have a particular language that
Mhm.
you prefer there?
Um, yeah, I say positive, negative.
Okay.
Um, I mean, but that also has a negative connotation. Um, I think it comes from clean bill of health.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I think over the years it's become less and less appropriate to use, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. I think that's the most robust and awesome, like, safety. I've never talked to anyone with a safety suitcase before, like a risk-aware suitcase. That's pretty
Uh,
cool. Um, I love
I'm
that
a
so
safety
much.
gal.
I love that, and I say that, yeah, I say I am Mrs. Safety, like, number 1, I'm Mrs. Health and Safety, and I wanna play with people, I wanna play safe. Also, I just don't think I've said this on pod, so since we're here, I wanna just jump on and, like, similarly, like, with hygiene, I always aim to not shame people, even if it is a literal, like, you need to learn how to pull back your foreskin and wash. Like, I've encountered, some lovers who maybe didn't
Mm,
know that. And I know that lots of people kind of shame about that. But I know there are certain swaths of the population who are not taught to look at their genitals at all. So, um, yes, we
mm,
want to wash.
mm-hmm.
No, we don't want to call each other names. Okay,
Yes.
so moving into more of your personal story, I would love to hear how you learned about sex and connection and pleasure growing up. Maybe, take us through your personal timeline of meaningful, intimate experiences, however that, whatever that means to you. Perhaps starting with when you first remember the concept of sex entering your awareness.
Mm. Well, I think it was probably Two Live Crew, Oh Me So Horny, the song. I loved it so much. And I would sing it all the time, and everybody would laugh in my family. And then I think I got a little old enough to be like, oh, what am I saying? That's not, I mean, it's weird for a little kid to be running around being, oh, me so horny, So I got very shameful of what I was doing. And I think my mom took that tape away. So she's like, what are you listening to? But she
Mm,
didn't realize how explicit the tape was until she had already purchased it for me. So I think that was my first like awakening of sexual words, right? Something being taboo. Like, you know, then I think finding porn in my dad's, drawers and popping in the VHS and being like, whoa, what is going on here? Um, kind of just expanded my brain of sexual adventure. Um, but I did encounter some unconsensual sexual situations at a very young age. So I was also kind of taught slash groomed slash forced into experiencing sexual things early on, right? So I think that made a mixture of making me very shameful of my body, but also has opened me up to being very free with my body now, you know,
mm,
through years of therapy and exploration. I've become very sexual positive. I think it's important to have a very healthy sexual appetite. I think it's very important to have a sexual self-love appetite. I think so many people shame themselves and guilt themselves into not feeling pleasure. I mean, I don't understand how people can function. You know,
yeah.
I think I call it post-cum clarity. Once
Yes.
you clear the body, you can really open up the mind. So I think I was really reserved and held off after my young sexual encounters up until I hit puberty, and that just involved, you know, um, boys and girls. And I remember telling my mom I liked boys and girls in preschool, and she said it would blow over eventually. Never really did for me. Um, yeah, so it was surprisingly, I think, a sexual kid. you know I remember, adolescence and middle school, lots of heavy petting, making out and touching, other people that were my age. We consensually, of course.
Yeah.
I had little boyfriends and little girlfriends. And then I encountered a sexual experience in my mid-teens that involved penetration. So that kind of really threw me. I became like asexual for a while.
Mm,
I wore very baggy clothes and hid my body. I also gained lots of weight. And then I think somewhere through like the beginning of high school, it's social suicide to go to school in a giant sweater. So I paid more attention to my appearance and my style, um, and kind of rediscovered my sexuality. I was openly bisexual in high school, and I played football. I was in drama, so I was kind of a bit of a free floater amongst the groups. So I got to have boyfriends and girlfriends and sexual encounters with consent. Um, and it kind of slowly made me flourish into, you know, people wanting to experiment with me because they knew I was very sexually open, you know. Um, then I went to college and kind of decided, okay, I have to closet myself once again. I'm starting afresh. I want to be an actor in Hollywood. And you can't be gay. You can't be bisexual. And, you can only fight those urges for so long, you know. And then I fell into sex work. It was survival sex work. I left home. I went to college. We were too poor to finish. So I used what was readily available to me, and that was my body. And that was just because someone commented on how young and sexy I was. And they I had a sexual encounter and he gave me money afterwards. And I was like, oh, I thought I was just sleeping with this older man, but he paid me. So I was like, okay, something clicked in my head. I can do this to survive and not have to go home, you know?
Yeah.
And I kind of slowly fell into that. I got invited to a goth club that was very industrial, and I met a group of folks that were performing. And I was very intrigued by the expression of sexuality and the movement in their bodies. They're half naked on stage in leather, dancing, touching people, hanging from the ceiling. Like, it just looks so adventurous and free. I inquired, I got accepted. They knew I danced. So I started stripping at this club specifically in Hollywood. And then that kind of led into go go dancing in gay bars. And, you start to take people home, people take you home, you make some money, you make some friends. And that was kind of my sexploration, really. Um, then I was approached by a madam who asked me if I would be interested in being her submissive, and I said, I'm not very much a submissive by nature, but I would be interested in learning what you know. So I lived in her cage for about a year. I would sleep in it and be there most time, but I would leave and have my own life.
Yeah.
So I was living, in a sense, a double life. I had an apartment, I had friends that I lived with, but they didn't know that I was a submissive to a madam. And then we would do sex work together. We would do shows together. We would perform together. And it was never really a sexual thing. It was more of a power dynamic and of kind of a mentor mentee. We had multiple clients, ranging from scenes together and scenes alone. If there was a scene that didn't involve me, I was the submissive there to take care of her, help her, you know, work the client, pack up, go home, and be safe.
Yeah.
And one day, she didn't show up, and I was like, okay, madam isn't here. What's going on? So I put on, a leather cap, and I was like, well, you get Sir Spike today, you know. And I worked that day's clients, and I think like 3 out of 5 stayed, and the other two were like, "No, this is weird. You're a dude." Where I'm not gay, but I'm like, okay. These were also closeted clients because they were the ones that were also partaking in more gay things, right? So it was funny to see shame come out because the female was removed in the situation. Yeah, and she had a mental breakdown, had to move away, um, and we've never spoken again. And I picked up the clients that I had, and I took over her roster. And I did dom work off and on for like 3 years. Um, I really enjoyed it, but also, doing something for that long that involves your body becomes, number one, tiresome on you. Um, I started to lose interest in sex if it wasn't for money, and then also like having trouble being intimate with people because I was so numb to doing things on a regular basis. And it wasn't actually until I was in a relationship and my partner at the time wasn't really crazy about me doing sex work. Um, so, I also think at that time I was tired and, again, a little desensitized from survival sex work. I think I had my own demons to confront about that. Since then, that was 14 years ago plus. Rewind real quick. That relationship that I left sex work for, um, we opened up the relationship later down the line. and I took on a lover, and that lover is now my husband. But it was through that relationship that I was able to re-unlock my sexual desires, my sexual freedom. I was able to release the guilt and shame that I had um, revolving sex work. You know, my partner now, my husband now, we've been together for 15 years, 14 years, and we were friends before that. So he's known me through most of my phases. You know, he was at my 21st birthday, and he didn't even know. No one knew that I was doing all the sex work. This didn't come out until we started dating and becoming more and more close. You know, I unlocked all these things because I was falling for someone, and I wanted them to know the true me. You know, I lied so much for survival growing up. That's why I think I don't like to tell lies now. I'm all about all truth, no lies. I think people will take you for face value or not at all. And if you don't want me, then you don't deserve me, and or I don't deserve you. Maybe, who knows? You know. Um, so yeah, I think I've unlocked that sexual freedom, and my partner, I have the freedom to do, you know, anything I want, as you know, as long as there's consent, as long as there's conversation, and as long as we don't tell lies. You know, I think again, communication has opened up everything for me, and I've run the gamut of being sexually closeted to now a very openly sexual positive person, and I wear it on the sleeve because I think that's something that people need to see.
I think that's so beautiful. I mean, what a full overview. What a life you've lived. I would love to hear your reflections on secrecy and desire, and I don't know if this works into it, but maybe
Mm,
how that interacts with someone who is paying you to submit to you, to have you be in charge.
mm, mhm. It's interesting. Yeah, I think, like you said, I went through many phases of secrecy, and um, very much. I'm kind of an all or nothing human being. You know, I'm either going to wear it on my sleeve and shout it from the rooftops, or I'm going to keep my mouth shut and not say a thing. Um, I think, yeah, the secrecy was because of guilt and shame, and I think the desires come through. If you have a kink or you have something that you're into, let me rephrase that. If you have something you're repressing, it will come out. It's an if and when. It's not, you know, and it'll eat you alive. You know what I mean? It'll make you volatile. It'll make you into something you're not. You know, I think I hid behind a lens of being very butch because of survival. I grew up in a gangster area, so walking down the street as a queer male was going to be hard. So I did the opposite. I was very butch. I was very strong. I was very hard. And finding through the sex work, you find out people want one or the other. You know what I mean? And you want to be one or the other. And I think I've reached a point in my life where I'm both. You know, you are both masculine and feminine. You are feminine and strong.
I think the idea of like those gender dynamics work into dominance and submission, regardless of what the genders of the participants actually are. I don't know. I guess I'm just curious what you learned about the sexual power experiences people are seeking when they seek out a professional with that specialty.
I was really interested in learning and studying because of the power she exuded in public. You know, it was almost like an orb around her. You know, she would part rooms. You know, and I wanted to know how to do that. That's what drew me. You know, and then meeting or getting to know someone, you strip away the hard layers, right? The chains come off, the leather comes off. You see the person bare bones. You see them in a situation where they're scared. You see them in a situation where they're excited. And it wasn't so one sided. Once I started to learn, once I started to study, you know, people are so complex. They have an outward exterior, but on the inside, that strongest person's probably soft as putty on the inside, you know? Um, so watching her switch from a dominant role to a submissive role, depending on the client, but she was mostly paid for dominance. And, you know, the reason I was integrated into it is that people wanted to be submissive and or wanted to dominate a male presenting person. And that's something she could not provide, And it was with the safety of having a female present that makes you feel, or the client feel, less like a homosexual. They feel, because there's a woman present, I can submit and or dominate this male in front of me because it's okay. Um, and I learned how to control that, how to read people and adjust, assimilate. Again, it's a survival technique, right? You shift. And I think I also learned how to read people in the sense that they want something. They're asking for a certain service, but in reality, they want something else, right? I'll give you an example. I think people who love impact play, you know, really want to be held, you know, they really want to be hugged. They want to be loved, but it's through the impact they feel the connection. Yeah. So I hope that feels like I gave an insight of learning the roles and studying them. I believed, and I still believe, that you are the best top by being the best bottom. You are the best dom by being the best submissive. If you want to learn your way around a kitchen, work every position in that job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to know what's up. You have to know how to push the buttons. People have to push your buttons so that you know how to react, when to react, and how to read someone, to dance.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. What is your preferred role right now? Like, do you enjoy topping? Like, I'm always top for work, but my origin is super duper service submissive, and also I see myself in the impact thing. I'm like, oh my god, I do need the hugs.
Yeah.
I need all of it. And so I only love topping because I'm always coming from a place of deep service, and truly I am putting on patterns that were taught to me by dominant partners. And I love providing that care, but where do you feel fed the most right now if we're looking at power exchange roles, if at all, if that's even relevant?
I think by nature I'm more of a dom top.
Okay.
But I call myself a seasonal bottom. You know, every once a season. But that's different. In a previous relationship, I was more of a bottom, and I topped on an occasion. So I think I go through phases of depending on my mood, how I've dealt with my sexual past. Yeah, so I think it just kind of waxes and wanes. I think on a daily basis, I'm more of a top. But everyone needs the bottom here and again. I'm never against it. I think it's all situational.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, totally. So we live in a society of capitalism. And I have a little theory that like maybe everyone here has a money kink, but like I recently, a few years ago, identified I like for reals have a money kink. Is that something that you identify about yourself? Like, does it operate for you, or was it just like a job that you did? Like, I get turned on when I get money for being in a sexual situation.
Yeah. I think I noticed that I was developing a kink for money when I was dancing
Mm,
because I was like, I'm doing this for survival. I'm being paid. But then when you're good and you build a client basis that come watch you dance, it feels really good to
mhm.
make money with your body. And I wasn't sure if it was the attention or the money for a very long time. And I think it's a bit of both. Um, I fell back into sex work during the pandemic. I was doing a lot more chat, text, video. I was even doing like mail stuff, like
Yeah,
snail mail.
yeah.
Um, and during that, I was like, I found out that yes, I do have a kink for money. I did some findom stuff. So I was able to acquire a couple pay pigs during the lockdown. In exchange for services from
Mm,
and I think I was like, oh wow, this is really, it makes you feel worthy of, again, capitalism world, right? You work hard, you make money. This is the same, but you're doing it with your body, so it almost feels like double worth it for me.
yeah, yeah. Oh, that's a great way to
It's
put it.
like
Yeah, that's
I
a
sweat, I bled, and probably came for this money.
yes, yes. I think it also helps me appreciate my money too and everything that I do with that too. I'm like, oof. Okay, I could get lost in diving down the rabbit hole of sex work, but I'd like to focus on like your sexual preferences. I would love to hear what is sexy to Spike.
Sure. I again love intimacy. I think intimacy is very sexy, and that can range from holding hands to just light taps and pets, and sometimes even just stares across the room.
Mm.
Can drive me wild. Um, but I'm also very much a physical human being. So I'll start from the bottom up. I'm obsessed with feet. I don't know what it is and why, but obsessed. I want them in my face. I want my feet in people's faces, like stomp on me, step on my face, put them in my mouth, and vice versa. Sold. And it's not everybody's feet. I think it's just, it's different kinds of feet. Nail polish, no nail polish, high arch, no arch, wide, thin, like, run the gamut,
Yeah.
Um, working my way, so I said working my way up. I'm super into oral pleasure. I think it's really fun to lick and suck every crevice and orifice down there, regardless of gender.
Yeah.
I think it's a special language, you know, um, when you're going down on someone, and you're able to control them from below or control them from above. I think it's a power exchange. You are taking something into yourself and or giving them some pleasure with your mouth. It's like I think you're whispering. It's like whispers. I am very into like burying my face into bodies.
Yeah.
Crotches, booties, thighs, chests, pits. Um, so I think all about those sensitive erogenous zones, which I think brings me to nipples.
Mhm.
My nipples are hot wired, so I can climax through just nipple play
That's
if
so cool.
if
I'm
done
so
correctly.
jealous of those types of people. Oh, that's so cool. When did you discover that?
I got my nipples pierced at a young age, and
Uh,
then they weren't really healing, so I took them out, and then I got them pierced again later in my 20s, and I realized I had gotten so sensitive, and you know, being with people, they rub and they hurt. So I was like, they're not healing because they keep getting knocked. And I do sex work. I was dancing at the time, so like
mm,
sweat and all that. So I was like, they're not healing. I'm taking them out. And when I took them out, they never went soft again. And I think just like wearing my shirt to work was like rubbing against my nipples. And I was like, oh. And I, didn't mean to, but I was aroused and I'm in public and it's my t-shirt, and then I discovered from that exploring myself and my partner exploring that they were just now they were now hotwired to my body and you can control me at will. I can be completely controlled through my nipples. I'm like a little toy, you know.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What specifically do you like to have done to them? Or is it like anything?
Um, you know, light squeezing and I mean the softest tender touch.
Mm,
That's simple as that.
wow.
Like you're ringing a little bell, a little tug here and there, but it's all about that sensuality that drives me wild.
Yeah. Were you saying that it backfires? Or is it like the idea of being so controlled? Like, what's the backfire
Oh
part?
no, it completely backfires. Yeah, I think you could inadvertently be aroused at any given time, right?
Oh.
Or like in our culture, bros love to give each other nipple twisters. You're like,
Do
you give
they?
me a nipple. Yeah, it's wild. Straight dudes love to touch each other's nipples and butts and junk. Taps
I
on the butt and nipple
wish that was a
rubs
thing
are
for
so
me.
real.
Yeah, okay, wow. Wow, wait, I've heard of this. Okay, I have heard of this because 'cause I've been like, locker room culture, you guys all touch each other, and I've had guy friends that are like, "Yeah," and then I've had some that are like,
Yeah.
"No." So I'm
No,
always like, "Yeah, no, no, that's not a thing."
very real.
Oh, that's so funny. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, keep
You
going
know,
up. Where else? Arm I heard you say bury face and armpits.
yeah, pits. I think I've developed over the course of time. I'm strangely mostly attracted to male presenting pits.
Mhm.
I think it's the hair, it's the
Yeah,
it's the smell of the body, You know what I mean? With female presenting folk, I think I tend to stay away from the pits. I don't know if it's more of an erogenous zone or not, but I think I tend to pay more attention to other parts of the body.
Yeah.
Necks, I think necks are underrated and not appreciated enough. Don't go sucking on hickeys, people. Leave no marks. That is very important. Do not leave marks. Marks are tacky and very 1990s, very 1980s. Below the neck, sure, bite away, suck away. But on the neck, we don't need badges. We're not 12 anymore. Or not 12, but 16, excuse me. I think necks need to be, we have so many blood vessels running through our neck.
Yeah.
Kisses, caresses, licking, and then blowing. Just changing the temperature on these sensitive areas. Ears. I love me some good little ear nipples.
Mm-hmm.
And I think hair. Hair is a huge turn on for me. And you don't have to be hairy, but I think if you have long, luscious hair, I'm gonna grab it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If your body's full of hair, I'm gonna rub in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oof, I love that. Also, circling back to lady armpits, I feel like first of all, I'll get distracted by a boob or a nipple if I'm in that zone, and I also feel like lady
Right.
armpits, on the whole, tend to be more ticklish than the dude armpits I've been with.
Then, yeah, very
Yeah,
true.
I
Very
check in.
true.
I mean, some of them are very tickly no matter what the gender, but like, yeah. That is such a good
Di-
overview of things that you think are sexy. I would love to hear a little bit about solo play. Like, are you into it? Is it something that you
Sure.
spend time on? Like, what do you enjoy with yourself? How has it changed over the years, etc.?
I'm gonna go back to the last question real quick because I really forgot impact play and spit for me.
Oh
Those
yeah,
are huge.
yeah,
COVID has changed the spit, so I only do spit play with established partners. I
yeah,
mean, besides the making out and
yeah.
and then impact play is just I think probably raised Catholic. There's that self-flagellation, like punishing yourself for doing something. So every now and again, I think I need my body reset by a good beating.
Mm, yeah.
Solo play. I do solo flog. I have solo flogged. I practice witchcraft.
Slow down about solo flogging and give us some like what kind of flogger do you like to use on yourself? Is that different from if you are giving impact to someone else? And like, yeah, what do you actually do? Like, what's a solo flogging session like for you?
I think solo flogging for me is specifically structured around punishment
Mm,
and or raising my vibrations to like cast a spell. You know what I mean? So I will only solo flog with a belt because that's what I was beat with as a child, and it raises something in me.
yeah.
But it also excites me as an adult. It's almost like I'm reclaiming the power of being abused, right? Um, Once in a while, I think I need that release. I also struggled with self harm growing up and up until my mid to late 20s. And I do not self harm now. And one way I have dealt with self harm is impact play throughout the year. You know what I mean? And then also like whipping myself, giving myself a little pain while I masturbate. Some does something to my brain.
Mm,
So I will actively masturbate and just like whip my back while it's happening. And again, it makes the blood rush. You almost get a little angry. I think it's probably the closest to like choking yourself. People like to masturbate in a hang, and then often sometimes people hang too far and hurt themselves.
yeah.
This is, I think, kind of like that. There's this self-infliction of naughty pain that triggers something inside. As far as casting with the witchcraft, I do believe in hiring your vibrations and putting it out into the universe. And sometimes
Yeah.
that is the fastest way to get my heart racing. It's almost like a jumping jack or a deep breath. It's like, you've seen in movies or in culture, people like slap themselves, they get hype themselves up. So I'll just whip my back a couple times to get myself going, remind
Mm,
myself I'm alive.
yes. Yes. Ooh. Anything else to say about solo play right now?
Yeah, I think I love toys. I think I like exploring different toys. I think it's important. I think I've ventured back into a little bit more of a more bottoming with my current play partners, and also like with my toys because I feel safe.
Mm.
I think penetration for me on my end, when I bottom, I have to feel safe and or want to completely be degraded and or anonymous. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think I go through phases of needing the safety. So I need to be, if I'm going to be penetrated, I need it to be by someone I know
Uh-huh.
and or myself. So that's where the toys come in.
Yeah.
I've found what doesn't hurt me, what feels good, what isn't pushing, and how to work up. It's also helped me gauge what I can and can't realistically take when I have a partner. You know what I
Mm.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't like to bottom for huge dicks. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
huge anything. I think
Yeah.
it's not enjoyable. It hurts. It doesn't feel good. So finding the right partner, finding the right toy is really important. I think trial and error. Um, I have a little hefty, toy box, insertables, toys that are fuckable. You know what I mean? I think being a sex worker and online specifically nowadays, you get lots of companies that want to send you things to try out. So I have a couple companies that send me remote operated like fuck machines. It's fun to just try it. There's so many new things coming out all the time.
Yes.
Um, my bingo show that I do monthly is sponsored by Romantic Sex Shop. So they're always giving me the newest, highest tech, fun gadget. One of my favorite toys right now is super simple. It's like it comes in a little egg, and you open the little egg, and it's just like a little rubber sheet that you put over your junk, and masturbate with it. And it's so simple, but it's easy to clean, and it's just recreates that fleshy feeling.
Mm. Those are the toys. Like, I'm so curious about strokers because I don't obviously have a cock. Maybe it's not obvious, but I don't have one. And that's the stuff where I'm like, oh, I just want to hear what that feels. What does it feel like? What does it feel like?
Yeah, I think it's like being with someone, but again, you're controlling. And
Yeah.
I think these toys are often rigid and they're shaped differently, so it's also something new for you to experience. So your body gets that sensation of this is taboo, kind of wrong, and it feels different than being with someone else.
Yeah.
Um, I'll find that I will climax faster with solo play than with a partner.
Okay. Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
that sensitivity, right?
Totally. I would love to hear a little bit more about what you enjoy in partnered play with or without toys. And I would especially love to hear the relationship between, your personal life and like sex work play and just kind of like how you organize it in your brain today?
Yeah, I think the sex with my partners ranges from I think what we both like or what we all of us involved in that moment like. My partner isn't so much into feet as much as I
Mm,
am, right? So our sex won't really evolve so much more feet play. You know what I mean? But my husband and I have built this castle of sex, right? I feel like whenever we have sex, it's magical. It becomes incredible. It's the intimacy. It's the years longing. It's the knowing each other's body, right? No one knows my body like my husband, but that won't often involve all of my kinks, right? So, there's also other partners that are specifically revolved around my kink or their kink, right? Like I have a friend is specifically my foot friend, right? We mostly play with each other's feet, and it's very fulfilling, right? For both sides of that. So I think it's important to find out your kinks, explore yourself, explore your partners, find out what works for them. It might not work for you, but you can either partake or comfortably, consensually find them a play partner that is into that. I think kink shaming is something that we do. I think people yuck other people's yum very often, but it's just because it sounds weird and they've never tried it, and
yeah.
or it comes with some sort of taboo connotation stigma that's not true.
Yeah.
And I think the way my sexual life, more of an online presence. I think I'm more of a, I make videos with people. I do content creation with folks. I'm all over the internet with my body, and I do live events. I think, but I'm not completely against taking more clients on in person. So
Mm,
I think it's a day to day basis, right? And also a month to month basis on where I am mentally,
yeah.
and physically, right? In order to give myself or not give myself to someone that's not a regular partner.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just very curious about the difference between, sex for work, whether it's content creation or more, and just, how you choose partners in
Mm.
your regular life. Like, do you feel like a
Mm.
personal life
Okay.
partner? I heard you say that you like teaching and learning from your partner, but maybe there's a difference between like unpaid sex work, or you have to like someone a certain amount, or how do you kind of think about that?
Well, first of all, I think I am a very sexually driven person.
Yeah.
So getting all my needs met by one person, I think, is probably unachievable, right? I would love sex multiple times daily.
Yeah.
That is completely unobtainable with one human being and two human beings that have jobs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's funny that you say that. So sometimes I think my sexual exploration bleeds into my sex work, and
Yeah.
sometimes vice versa. Right? I go to someone, and we have established we're going to film, we're going to have sex, we're going to film it, and then we're going to put it on the internet for money.
Yeah.
And what if I have fun? What if I enjoyed it? You know? And sometimes those friends become lovers. You know what I
Okay.
mean? And sometimes you forget to film. You know what I mean? Like you're like, okay, I'm here, what's up? And then you become intimate and then you're like, wait, we didn't record or take one picture. So I feel like the lines kind of can become blurred, right?
Okay.
And then I have those friends that I'm like, we are specifically creating this content. It's fine sex, but there's a connection, obviously, but we can do it, put on a show, and it'll be fine. As for sex work, I don't really do sex work for anyone I don't choose anymore. So I think I've also eliminated putting myself in the situation where I feel threatened or I don't feel good. I think when learning that through doing sex work for survival, I've learned what to say no to, because I didn't have the luxury of saying no in the past.
Hmm.
And again, that's a tricky, slippery slope to making you feel like you're nasty, you're wrong, you're full of guilt, you're full of shame, and also that might ruin sex for you. I think um, my sex work in my early 20s ruined bottoming for me because I had to do it so much
Mm.
with so many people I didn't want to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it was through having a long term partner and then having multiple lovers that make you feel sexy. You are like, oh, I can do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've gone through a couple, I have a medical history here and there, which allowed me not to bottom because it was very uncomfortable. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I
Yep.
have lots of stomach issues, and you don't want to bottom on a rumbly tummy, or
No.
when you have internal pain.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, the lines kind of blur, but I'm fortunate enough to, in my life right now, to not have to do something that I don't want to do sexually while doing sex work, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Beautiful. I do want to circle back to feet. Are you into foot jobs? And if so,
absolutely.
tell us about it. Yeah. Giving, receiving, all
Yeah,
of it. Like,
absolutely.
yeah.
I don't know what it is about feet that just drive me. About I mean, I do know. I do know. It's it's taboo. It's wrong. It feels it feels degrading in a way, but it's also intimate in a different way, right? If you've had your feet licked and sucked, it's ticklish. It sends tingles to your body. It's very sensitive.
Yeah.
And then if you've ever had a foot in your mouth, it does something to my brain. It automatically makes me feel submissive in a non-threatening way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, I do.
So yeah, when I'm feeling submissive, I want them in my mouth. I want to suck on them. I want people to like step on my face within reason. Obviously,
Yeah.
you know what I mean. Um, and that's really fun for solo play. Me and fake feet and solo like feet in my face and me playing with myself is like
Ooh.
my favorite. But there's also a twist. I love to top with feet in my face.
Hmm.
So topping by inherently makes you feel more like a dom, but
Mm.
the feet in my face make me feel very submissive at the same time.
Ooh.
So
Ooh.
like it's this weird power dynamic and combination of the power of taking someone's body, but also being degraded by their feet in your face.
Oh, that's so fun. That's so yummy. I one time sat behind a partner who had a cock, and I discovered he was into feet, and I have long legs, and our bodies just, it works so that I wrapped them around, and that was the first foot job I gave, so I was, like, around him, and then, like, not long after, I met another one who was such a good foot worshiper, and I, like, used my abs to make him come with my feet just, like, on top, like, he was, like, laying down, and I was kinda sideways, but we were, like, staring at each other, it was so intimate. For me, it's, like, experiencing every part of our body together, it's like
Mm-hmm.
there are no like, almost it's like feet are the beyond horizon. It's like we will go there, and I love touching people's feet and waking up, these aspects of our body that aren't necessarily touched a lot, and like you said with the hair, the back of the neck, bald head, eyebrows, like places people don't necessarily receive attention. I just
Mm-hmm.
love. Okay, I
Mm-hmm.
could obviously talk to you forever, but I want to be mindful of our time. So, are there any other like fetishes, kinks, toys, sensations, turn-ons that you just want to mention? I mean, it sounds like there's a lot. It sounds like we could talk for days,
Yeah, there's a lot.
but just
Multi-layered.
lightning. Just list us
Uh,
lightning things. Anything else that comes to mind?
I'm really now, I think for my own sexual pleasure, I think I'm into the power dynamic. I think I like to be called sir. I like to be called daddy. I think I'm 5'4". I'm short, I'm small. So um I don't, this is the way I get tall, right? All my partners are taller than me. I have a type. I think it's something about being short and then doming someone who's taller than you is very sexy.
Mm,
So I think the size difference is really big for me,
mhm.
and or not. Like I don't tend to go for smaller people. I tend to go for people that are bigger than me. Um, and then also when I bottom, I want to feel small. I want to feel dainty and cute. I
Yeah,
want, you know what I mean.
yeah.
Um, I'm obsessed with leather. I'm vegetarian. Um, a Catholic vegan, if you will. I eat cheese sometimes and then I say sorry because it hurts my tummy. But I love leather. Leather is an absolute fetish. It's the smell, the feel. It's very empowering to put on.
Yeah.
So if you don't have leather, start with something small. Buy yourself a pair of gloves, a
Mm,
leather belt,
mm,
a hat. It's leather feels very different on the flesh. I like to be touched by leather, but I don't like to touch with leather gloves because I like to feel the body in my hand.
yes.
You know. But when I dom, I wear leather gloves.
Yeah.
There's that separation, and that reminds me to my keep myself where I need to be. You know.
Yeah.
Um, and I take the gloves. When the gloves come off, it's real. Um, and shoes. I don't know. I think it's from my dad and his dad um, were boot blacks for survival when they were kids.
Mm,
They lived in Mexico, so they were always doing people's boots. So from a young age, I was taught boot care almost in a very military-esque way. We had our little kit, our little bag, and when I was young, I'd be like, all the uncles would come over, and I'd be like doing everybody's boots, and it would bring me pleasure. It was wild, and I didn't know if it was because I was young and needed to fulfill a purpose.
yeah.
But as I got older, I realized the care that goes into a boot
Yes.
really turns me on. And if
Mm,
someone has really nice, clean boots, I'm like, I want to rub my dick on them. And if someone has really ugly,
oh,
fucked up boots, I just want to like polish them and bring them to life while touching them, just to,
yeah.
I don't know, it's almost like breathing life into a shoe. And then I know there's a foot inside, right? So it just becomes this whole like fantasy in my head of reviving someone's soul,
I love
pun
that.
intended.
Yes, pun intended. I fucking love that. It didn't come up in our conversation. I don't know if it fits into your sex life, but what about drag? Just real quick before we wrap up.
Oh, yeah. I am a drag queen. I do drag a lot. I try to keep that very different from my sex life and sex world. For me, dressing in drag does not give me pleasure.
Mm.
I think wearing dresses doesn't give me pleasure. It makes me feel good, but it doesn't turn me on. I think it is not a sexual kick of mine. I do love the attention I get from straight men when I'm in drag. It's like baffling how many straight men are like, "You're gorgeous." I'm like, "I'm a drag queen," and they know that. I think it's just something that they're able to be free with.
Mm.
But it turns me off. I don't want to. I'm so. It's very uncomfortable. I'm wearing lots of tights. I'm in heels. I'm cinched. I'm probably wearing fake boobs and a wig. Like I don't feel very cute. I look cute on the outside, but I don't. I mean, you couldn't touch me if you tried. I have so many layers on.
That encapsulates how I feel about clothes. Like, yes, I'll dress up and get pretty and do the whole girl thing to go, but like, I would rather be naked. You know, like I would just
Yeah,
always rather be
yeah.
naked if it's warm enough. So that's well put, well shared. Um, what, if any, are your sexual hopes for the future and or just adventure bucket list? Doesn't have to be related to sex, but like, is there anything on your horizons that you haven't explored that you're curious about or drawn to?
I'm always open to trying new things. I think that's the important thing about being a sexual positive creature and a creature in general. We
Yeah.
get this life. You only live once, twice if you're lucky, right?
Yeah.
So live it, experience it. Um, have taboo sex. Do it in naughty places. I think that's fun. So yeah, I'm always open to more kinks, more things. I'm sure there's something I haven't tried out there. You know what I mean? And my partner and I will always, always welcome more and more play partners. So I think just furthering that dynamic of having a primary partner who's safe, who I'm married
Yeah.
to, who knows me, and also having the freedom to explore myself and other people together and alone
Yeah.
is really special and really important to continue. Yeah, I have lots of different friends that are into different things, so I'm sure someone will turn me onto something fun and new and exciting soon enough.
Oh, I fucking love that. Okay. My personal mission is to create a world where taking care of each other is the norm, one ripple of love at a time. I'd love to hear, how do you think we can co create a more connected, loving, woo filled world together? And part two of this question is, how do you like to spread ripples of love?
Wow, that's a beautiful question and so deep. I love it. I like to spread community, so I think Um, it's all my shows. I do a naughty bingo that promotes drinking and having fun and eating food, and you win naughty sex toys as prizes. I encourage people to strip down and be in their underwear in a public place. I have the drag bingo that, is silly and campy and fun and different. I think I like creating events that open people's minds and make them smile. If I make you mad, if I make you horny, if I make you happy, I made you feel. So I think for me is making people feel is so powerful. I think that's probably why I love sex work so much, right? I can make you feel something for that moment
Mm,
and or give you a gift that you've never had before. You know what I mean?
I do.
I'm not big headed. I don't think I have an ego, but who knows? But I think I'm a great lover. I think not everyone should experience sex with me, but I feel like, what I mean? I feel like it's important
Yes.
to experience different sexual encounters.
Yes.
I think the way we can spread that is communication. I think the more we talk about taboo situations, the more normalized it becomes. You know what I mean? I still to this day hear people yuck like pup play or adult babies, and to each their own. You don't have to like it, but if you're willing to have the dialogue to hear why and when, and it makes people tick. You know what I mean? I think you can by just communicating with others, you can lower that shield of guilting someone or shaming someone for something that gives them pleasure. You don't have to be intimate, but be open to the idea so that you can perceive people differently. You know, um, I think it's important. Um, and consent. I ask somebody if you are somewhere and you want to kiss someone, walk up and ask them. You'd be surprised. I think that in our culture, we're so stuck on our phones now. The art of cruising has been almost, practically lost, right?
Yeah.
I think there used to be so much excitement of walking to the grocery store because you never know what's going to happen, you
Yes.
know? So I think looking at people, checking people out, having that conversation and inviting someone, you're not weird. I mean, they'll probably think you're weird at first, but they'll fall in love with you later. I promise.
Yeah. Also, like, everyone's a little weird, and we have to let our weird parts out so we can fall in love with them. To, like what you said, to be
Mm.
perceived, to be witnessed, to be received. It doesn't mean you have to witness me in every moment, but that is beautifully said. Thank you. Lovers, you can find Spike on Instagram at Spike Prince of Cat.
X as Spike Sauce 7. I'm on OnlyFans as Spike Prince of Cats. I have a website that has my art, my drag, and there's a little link for sex work and education, spikeprinceofcats.com.
Links are in the description below. Spike, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom of woo. Thank you so much for sharing your sex stories.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Always remember to stay nasty.
Yeah, we gotta stay nasty. I love it. Lovely woo humans, that is our show. Remember to follow your hearts and follow your parts and follow me in family-friendly internet places at Lunar Woohoo, or if you're in naughty internet places, at Lunar Secrets. Visit howtowoo.fyi for links to everything. You can support our awesome show on Patreon for early ad-free episodes. You can worship me virtually on OnlyFans or Sextpanther, or we can work together in person in a number of excellent creative capacities. You can also ask a question, share a story, or apply to be a guest at howtowoo.fyi if you want to be on the show. And tell a friend to help us grow. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and let me know how you're spreading ripples of love.